Mark Thompson gazed out the window of his suburban home, captivated by the alien ships gliding gracefully across the evening sky. Even after 5 years of peaceful coexistence, their presence still filled him with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. At 45, he felt the weight of life's changes, particularly after his recent divorce. The doorbell rang, jolting him from his thoughts. His heart raced. This was it. His new alien housekeeper had finally arrived. He straightened his shirt and approached the door, nerves bubbling within him. When he opened it, he was taken aback. Standing before him was a striking young alien woman, her skin a mesmerizing shade of blue that shimmered in the fading light. Her long, iridescent hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her eyes, large and almond-shaped, swirled with patterns of silver and violet. "Greetings, Mark Thompson," she said, her voice melodious. "I am Selene, sent by the Intercultural Exchange Service to assist you as your housekeeper." Mark found himself momentarily speechless. Of course. Please, come in." "It's nice to meet you, Selene." He stepped aside to let her enter, catching a hint of an exotic floral fragrance as she glided past him into the foyer. This was going to be far more challenging than he had anticipated. Selene examined the entryway with wide-eyed curiosity, her slender blue fingers tracing the patterns on the wallpaper. "Your dwelling is most intriguing, Mark Thompson. So many enclosed spaces," she remarked, her tone a mix of wonder and confusion. "Just Mark is fine," he replied, closing the door behind her. "I suppose human homes are quite different from what you're used to. Would you like a tour?" Selene's eyes brightened. "Oh, yes. I would be delighted to explore your habitat." As he led her through the house, Mark felt a blend of amusement and unease at Selene's enthusiastic examination of mundane objects. She marveled at the kitchen appliances and peppered him with questions about the television, showing particular fascination for the houseplants. "These green beings," she said, stroking a fern, "do you keep them captive for decoration?" Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "Not exactly. They're not sentient like your plants. They're just ordinary ones." Selene tilted her head, clearly skeptical. "Perhaps they simply haven't revealed their true nature to you yet." They climbed to the second floor, and Mark gestured toward a door on the left. "This will be your room. I hope it's comfortable enough." Selene stepped inside, her expression inscrutable. "It is very enclosed. Do humans truly sleep in such small spaces?" Yes," Mark replied, suddenly feeling self-conscious. "Don't your people have private bedrooms?" Her musical laugh echoed through the hallway. "Oh, Mark. The concept of private spaces is quite foreign to us. On my world, we live in communal dwellings. Sleeping, eating, bathing, all are shared experiences." Mark felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I see. Well, Earth customs are a bit different. We value personal space and privacy, especially for things like sleeping and bathing." Selene's gaze sharpened, her interest piqued. "Fascinating. And why is that? Does your species require solitude for these activities?" "Not exactly," Mark stammered, scrambling for a diplomatic explanation. "It's more about modesty and personal boundaries. Humans generally prefer to be alone or with intimate partners for certain private moments." "Intriguing," Selene said, testing the words. "Intimate partners?" Mark coughed, his face now burning. "That's one aspect, yes, but it's complicated. Maybe we should discuss human social norms another time. For now, just remember to knock before entering someone's bedroom or bathroom, okay?" Selene nodded solemnly. "I shall endeavor to respect these strange human customs." As the days passed, Mark found himself both charmed and exasperated by Selene. She approached every task with unbridled enthusiasm, but her unfamiliarity with human technology often led to mishaps. The laundry incident, which involved far too much detergent and a flooded utility room, had been particularly memorable. But it was Selene's constant questions and observations that truly kept Mark on his toes. Her unique perspective forced him to reconsider aspects of daily life he had always taken for granted. One evening, as Mark prepared dinner, Selene hovered nearby, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Mark, why do humans insist on altering the molecular structure of their sustenance through the application of heat?" she asked, wrinkling her nose at the sizzling pan. He chuckled, stirring the vegetables. You mean cooking? It makes the food tastier and easier to digest. Don't tell me your people eat everything raw? Selene's skin shifted to a deeper shade of blue, her species equivalent of a blush. We absorb nutrients directly through our epidermal layer, she explained. The concept of inserting substances into a body cavity for processing is rather alien to us. Mark nearly dropped his spatula. Wait, you mean you don't eat at all? How do you? He gestured vaguely at her mouth. Selene's lips curved into a mischievous smile. Oh, this orifice serves other purposes. Communication primarily and certain intimate activities. Their eyes met, and Mark felt a jolt of electricity run through him. He quickly turned back to the stove, pulse racing. Right. Well, humans use our mouths for those things too, and eating, which I should really focus on right now. Selene's laughter filled the kitchen. Oh, Mark, your epidermis is changing pigmentation again. Is this another sign of discomfort with innate topics? Mark groaned inwardly. Living with Selene was proving to be an exercise in perpetual embarrassment and something far more dangerous he wasn't quite ready to name. As weeks went by, Mark grew increasingly aware of Selene's presence in his home. It wasn't just her striking appearance or intoxicating scent. There was something about her open curiosity and fresh perspective that made him feel truly alive for the first time since his divorce. One lazy Sunday afternoon, Mark was engrossed in a book when Selene's voice startled him. Mark, I require clarification on a human hygiene ritual. He looked up to find her standing uncomfortably close, head tilted in that endearing way that signaled a barrage of questions was incoming. Sure, Selene. What's on your mind? She gestured toward the bathroom. I've observed that you frequently enter that small tiled room and activate a mechanism that releases streams of water. Yet you emerge appearing no cleaner than before. What is the purpose of this exercise? Mark blinked, processing her words. Oh, you mean showering? It's how humans clean themselves. The water and soap wash away dirt, sweat, and bacteria. Selene's brow furrowed. But your epidermis appeared free of contaminants prior to this ritual. And why isolate oneself for cleansing? On my world, it is a communal activity that strengthens social bonds. Mark felt his cheeks grow warm. Well, as I mentioned, humans value privacy for certain activities. Bathing is usually done alone or with, intimate partners. Selene's eyes widened with interest. Ah, so it is a mating ritual as well. Fascinating. I had wondered about the purpose of that large water receptacle in your sleeping chamber. What? No. Mark sputtered, flustered. I mean, sometimes couples shower together, but it's not primarily about that. He ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. Look, showering is just about getting clean. The privacy is for modesty's sake. Humans are usually uncomfortable being naked around others. Selene tilted her head, clearly perplexed. But why? Your body is simply a natural housing for your consciousness. What is there to conceal? Mark sighed, struggling to explain generations of complex social norms and ingrained modesty to someone from a completely different culture. It's complicated, he finally said. Humans have a lot of cultural and emotional associations with nudity. Being naked makes most of us feel vulnerable. Selene considered this for a moment. I see. And yet you willingly make yourself vulnerable in this way on a daily basis. How curious. Her gaze sharpened with interest. I should very much like to observe this ritual. For scientific purposes, of course. Mark nearly choked. Absolutely not. That would be extremely inappropriate. Selene's skin darkened to a deep indigo, a sign of disappointment. I see. Another human taboo I've inadvertently violated. My apologies, Mark. He softened at her crestfallen expression. It's okay, Selene. I know you're just trying to understand our culture, but some things are off-limits, even for scientific observation, okay? She nodded solemnly. I shall respect your boundaries, Mark, though I admit I find many human customs most perplexing. As she glided away, Mark let out a shaky breath. Living with Selene was proving to be a constant exercise in cultural navigation and a dangerous test of his self-control. The incident faded from Mark's mind over the next few days, but Selene's curiosity about human bathing rituals had clearly not abated. He caught her examining the shower with great interest on several occasions, and her questions about hygiene practices grew increasingly specific. Mark did his best to provide clinical explanations while maintaining appropriate boundaries, but he couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Selene's innocent inquisitiveness was charming, but her complete lack of understanding regarding human modesty was a potential powder keg. His fears were realized one fateful morning. Mark had just stepped into the shower, relishing the hot water cascading over his tired muscles when the bathroom door suddenly flew open. "Mark, I've been conducting research on human cleansing rituals, and I have several important queries." Selene's voice cut off abruptly as she registered the scene before her. Mark yelped in surprise, instinctively trying to cover himself with his hands. "Selene, what the hell? Get out!" But Selene made no move to leave. Instead, she stepped closer, her luminous eyes wide with fascination. "Oh, I see you are in the midst of your hygiene procedure. How fortuitous. Now I can finally observe the process firsthand." "No, absolutely not," Mark sputtered, fumbling for the shower curtain. "This is completely inappropriate. You need to leave right now." Selene tilted her head, confusion evident on her delicate features. "But why? I thought we had progressed beyond mere employer and domestic assistant. Are we not friends?" Mark felt a mix of frustration and something dangerously close to arousal coursing through him. Selene's otherworldly beauty, combined with her complete innocence regarding the situation, was severely testing his self-control. "Selene, please," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "Human friends do not watch each other while bathing." As her eyes narrowed thoughtfully, Mark braced himself for the impending cultural clash, unsure of how to navigate the delicate balance between friendship and boundaries. Mark stood frozen in the shower, his heart racing as Selene continued to watch him with her wide, curious eyes. He could hardly process the fact that she had just barged in on him in such an intimate moment. How could he explain human boundaries to her when she seemed so blissfully unaware? "Selene, I really need you to leave right now," he pleaded, his voice strained. "This isn't appropriate at all." She tilted her head, confusion etched on her features. "But why not? You are engaged in a cleansing ritual, are you not? I simply wish to understand your customs better. It's not just a ritual. It's private." Mark stammered, his cheeks flushed. Humans value modesty and personal space, especially when it comes to being naked. "Please, just go." Her expression softened, and she took a step back, sensing his discomfort. "I did not intend to intrude. I only wanted to learn, Mark." I know, he said, trying to calm his racing heart. "But some things are off-limits, even for scientific purposes. You wouldn't want me to walk in on you while you're doing whatever you do to cleanse yourself, would you?" Selene blinked, her expression contemplative. "I see. You have a point. But I confess, I am curious about the human form. There is so much to learn." Mark shook his head, trying to regain some semblance of composure. "Look, you can learn about human customs without witnessing them firsthand. Just wait outside, and we can talk afterward. I'll explain everything you want to know about bathing, I promise." Her skin darkened to a lighter shade of blue, a sign of understanding. "Very well, Mark. I will respect your boundaries." With that, she turned and exited the bathroom, closing the door behind her. Mark let out a long, shaky breath, relief flooding through him. He quickly finished his shower, feeling a mix of embarrassment and lingering excitement from their encounter. Once he was dressed and presentable, he stepped into the living room, where Selene was waiting, her posture still curious yet a little more reserved than before. "I apologize for intruding," she said, her voice softer now. "I truly did not mean to make you uncomfortable." Mark rubbed the back of his neck, trying to find the right words. "It's okay, Selene. I know you're just trying to learn about our culture, but there are certain things that are private for humans. It's a matter of respect, you know." "I understand," she replied, nodding earnestly. "Your customs are so different from mine. On my planet, we share everything openly, and nudity is not seen as something to hide. It is a natural state." "I get that," Mark said, feeling the tension ease slightly. "But here, it's different. We have this sense of personal space that we value." Selene tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. And what is the benefit of this privacy? Many people find comfort in it, Mark explained, choosing his words carefully. It's about feeling secure and having control over who sees you and when. Some humans find vulnerability in nudity, while others simply feel uncomfortable. It can lead to anxiety if someone feels their boundaries are crossed. Selene looked genuinely intrigued. Fascinating. Your emotional responses to your body and its exposure are quite complex. I would like to understand more. Sure, but let's maybe stick to less sensitive topics for now, Mark suggested, a smile creeping onto his face as he recalled the absurdity of their conversation. How about I explain the concept of showering instead? Very well, Selene said, her eyes lighting up. I am eager to learn. Mark led her to the bathroom, a bit wary but determined to maintain some semblance of control over the situation. Okay, so the shower is where we wash ourselves. Water flows from the shower head, and we use soap to cleanse our skin. Soap? Selene echoed, stepping closer to inspect the bottle on the edge of the tub. What is its purpose? It helps to break down dirt and oils on the skin, making it easier to wash them away with water, Mark explained. Here, let me show you. He turned on the water, allowing it to cascade down as he stepped back to avoid any splashes. See how the water flows. When you apply the soap and then rinse, it washes everything away. Selene watched intently, her eyes wide as she observed the droplets glistening in the light. So, this ritual is meant to enhance your cleanliness and well-being? Exactly, Mark said, feeling more at ease. And it can also be quite relaxing. A lot of people enjoy taking showers to unwind. Interesting, Selene said, a thoughtful expression on her face. On my world, cleansing is a communal experience. We bond while bathing together. It sounds quite lonely to do it alone. Mark raised an eyebrow. Well, it can be lonely, but it can also be a time to reflect and find peace. Sometimes, you just want some quiet to yourself, you know? Ah, solitude, she murmured. Your species has such complex emotional needs. It is intriguing. As they stood together in the bathroom, a comfortable silence fell between them. Mark felt a growing sense of appreciation for Selene's inquisitiveness and her genuine desire to understand him and his world. It was refreshing to have someone who viewed life so differently. Suddenly, a thought crossed his mind. Selene, would you like to join me for a shower? Just as a way to understand our customs better? She blinked, her eyes widening in surprise. You mean to share this experience? Together? Well, Mark hesitated, realizing how that sounded. I mean, we can shower together, but, let's keep it modest. Selene's expression turned serious. If that is your wish, I shall respect your boundaries, but I would still like to understand the process. Mark took a deep breath, deciding to embrace the moment. Okay. Just remember, it's a cultural exchange, nothing more. As he turned on the water again, he felt a thrill of nervous excitement. Would this lead to another awkward moment, or could it be an opportunity to share their worlds in a way he had never imagined? Selene stepped closer to the shower, her curiosity palpable as she watched the water flow. Mark hesitated, feeling the weight of his decision, yet knowing that he was embarking on an experience that could bridge the gap between their vastly different cultures. Let's do this, he said, stepping under the spray. And remember, we're just observing. Selene nodded, her demeanor serious yet eager as she prepared to step in alongside him, ready to explore the intricacies of human bathing rituals and the delicate balance of shared intimacy. As the warm water enveloped them, Mark felt a rush of mixed emotions: excitement, apprehension, and an unexpected thrill. He stood under the spray, trying to focus on the educational aspect of the moment rather than the growing tension in the air. Selene watched him with wide, luminous eyes, her blue skin shimmering in the light. Now, let's begin, he said, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. First, we take the soap. Soap, she repeated, leaning forward to examine the bar he held. It has such a strange texture. Mark nodded, feeling a bit of a blush creeping up his neck. Yeah, it's a little slippery. You'll get used to it. He handed her the bar, watching as she turned it over in her delicate fingers, her curiosity palpable. May I try using it? Selene asked, her eyes glinting with excitement. "Sure, just be careful. You don't want to drop it," Mark replied, stepping aside to give her space. Selene approached the showerhead, her expression serious as she held the soap to her skin. "How does one apply it?" she asked, looking over her shoulder at him. "Just rub it on your body, like this." Mark demonstrated, applying the soap to his arms. It creates a lather that helps to remove dirt and sweat. Selene followed suit, carefully applying the soap to her arms, her movements deliberate and measured. As the lather began to form, her eyes lit up. "Fascinating. The texture is intriguing." Mark chuckled, feeling a little more at ease. "Yeah, it's one of the simple pleasures of human life." As Selene continued to wash, she asked, "How long do you typically engage in this ritual?" "Most people spend about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on how much time they have. Some just want a quick rinse, while others like to relax under the water." He paused, watching her with a mixture of admiration and amusement. "But honestly, I don't think anyone's ever looked that fascinated while taking a shower." Selene laughed, her melodious voice echoing off the bathroom tiles. "It is all so new to me. I find it hard to contain my excitement. Your customs are delightfully strange." Mark grinned, realizing that her enthusiasm was infectious. "And you're not even embarrassed," he teased lightly. "I don't think I could ever be this open in a shower back home." "That is the beauty of our cultural exchange," Selene replied, rinsing the soap from her arms. "I can learn from you, and you can learn from me." Her earnestness struck a chord within him, and he felt a warmth growing in his chest. "Yeah, I guess that's true," he admitted. "I've been so focused on keeping boundaries that I forgot how liberating it can be to share experiences." Selene smiled, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "May I ask you something, Mark? What is the sensation like when water cascades over your body?" He blinked, caught off guard by the question. Well, it's refreshing. It can feel soothing or invigorating, depending on the temperature. You'll find out for yourself if you keep enjoying the shower," he said, gesturing toward the water. She tilted her head, clearly contemplating his words. "Your language is filled with nuances. This invigorating sensation, does it mean that you feel more alive afterward?" "Exactly," he replied, feeling a sense of connection grow between them. "It's almost like a reset button for the day. It helps clear your mind." Selene nodded thoughtfully, her expression serious. "I appreciate your explanation. Your species places great value on personal experiences and emotional states. It is something I wish to understand deeply." As she rinsed off the last of the soap, Mark caught himself staring at her. The way the water glided over her skin and how the light danced in her iridescent hair was mesmerizing. He shook his head, trying to dispel any inappropriate thoughts. This was a cultural exchange, not a romance. "Okay, so the next step is rinsing," he said, forcing himself to focus on the task. "Just let the water flow over you to wash away the soap." Selene complied, tilting her head back to let the water cascade over her. Mark couldn't help but admire the sight. She was ethereal, a vision of beauty that seemed almost otherworldly. He was becoming acutely aware of the intimacy of the moment, and it sent a thrill down his spine. "Tell me more about your hygiene rituals," Selene said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity as she turned to face him again. "Do you use any additional substances for your skin? I have read about various lotions and oils." "Yeah, after showering, a lot of people like to use lotion to keep their skin moisturized," Mark explained, reaching for a bottle he usually kept near the sink. "This is a common one. It helps prevent dryness and can smell nice, too." "Would you demonstrate?" she asked, her eyes wide with anticipation. Sure," Mark said, feeling slightly flustered. He squeezed a small amount of lotion into his hands and rubbed them together, trying to keep his movements professional. "You just apply it like this. It feels nice, especially after a shower when your skin is still damp." Selene watched him intently, her gaze never leaving his hands as he demonstrated. "May I try?" she asked again, this time with a hint of eagerness in her voice. Mark hesitated for a moment, considering the closeness of their bodies in the small shower stall. "Okay, but remember, it's just for demonstration purposes." Selene nodded, her expression earnest as she took the lotion from him. I understand. As she began to apply the lotion to her arms, Mark felt a rush of heat rise in his cheeks. He watched her movements, fascinated by how her skin absorbed the cream, leaving it looking even more radiant. It feels wonderful, she exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. I see how this enhances your physical well-being. Mark nodded, trying to suppress the growing warmth in his chest. Yeah, it's one of those small luxuries that make a big difference. Selene turned her attention back to him, her blue eyes sparkling with curiosity. And do you enjoy this ritual? Does it bring you happiness? He paused, taken aback by her directness. I do, actually. It's a nice way to take care of yourself. Plus, it can be a moment to reflect and unwind. Reflection, she repeated thoughtfully. A crucial aspect of human experience, then. Mark nodded, feeling a growing sense of connection with her. It really is. We often forget to take the time to care for ourselves, but rituals like this help remind us. Selene finished applying the lotion and stepped closer to him, her gaze intense. Thank you for sharing this with me, Mark. Your customs are enlightening, and I find myself enjoying our time together. The air between them felt charged, and Mark realized he was no longer thinking about boundaries. Instead, he was drawn in by her openness, her sincerity, and the undeniable chemistry that simmered just beneath the surface. Me too, Selene, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm glad we're doing this. She smiled, and for a moment, the space between them felt electric. In that shared bubble of intimacy, Mark wondered what this experience would lead to. Would it remain a simple cultural exchange, or would it evolve into something deeper? As they stood together in the shower, the warmth of the water cascading around them, Mark felt the tension of the outside world fade away. For the first time in a long while, he felt alive, and he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something extraordinary.